Hello, welcome. I appreciate each and every one of you who's taken some time to listen to this Dhamma talk. I'm grateful to you for that. I am curious that people do not seem to be starting at page 1 and following through to the end of the booklet. It looks to me like they randomly pick a page. So if someone would post a comment helping me to understand these choices, I would be grateful for that. Of course, you're free to listen to it in any format, any of your choice. It's not essential that it be listened to page by page, but I'm just curious about it. I want to make a couple comments about page 59. We were talking about the 10 impurities of insight. So insight, we hold it up as an essential practice, essential part of our practice. We won't be successful in the practice without insight, but insight is also subject to pollution by delusion and misunderstanding. In short, we must reject all experience, regardless of its nature, in meditation or in the secular world, as not happening to me. If we cannot reject all experiences, we will identify with the ones, some that are very pleasant or pleasurable, especially if we're Dhamma practitioners. We will really like certain experiences that arise during meditation practice. And there are always those people who, for whatever reason, cling to very bad memories, very bad experiences, or bring them into the present moment. But in both cases, it's clinging. So tanha is this practice of holding on to something, good or bad or neutral. And it's the holding on that keeps us in the realm of rebirth. So our job, our insight practice is everything arises, everything passes away, and none of it is happening to a person. Okay, now we'll begin our talk on page 60. It says, "In what are all things rooted?" First one, all things are rooted in desire, tanha, okay? Desire and clinging to the desire and the fulfillment of the desire. If we have some insight, we will notice no matter how wonderful an event is or how tragic an event is, over time it dissipates, it weakens. Sometimes not to the point we totally forget, but that it does not sustain the intensity. So I heard a famous young woman, I think she's 20 years old. Her name is Coco Gauff. She's number 3 ranked worldwide in tennis. And in an interview yesterday, she said, when I won the US Open, after some time, I saw that I was still the same person that I was, that life and the world didn't change very much. And when I lost in the finals, I believe it was the Australian Open, but anyway, another one of the major championships, she said, when I woke up the next day, I found also that I was still the same as I was before. The world, in fact, had not blown up or disintegrated or anything else. So this is a kind of equanimity that's very refined. And our suffering, we're talking about things, what are all things rooted in? The first one is they're rooted in desire. Coco Gauff has to have the desire to be good at tennis or she won't practice and she won't play. How do they come to be? Well, we have to give them our attention. If a desire arises, we know it and we let go of it, that's the end. But if we become interested in it, it's called sankharas, and now we begin to proliferate. We begin to let the mind run wild, so to speak. And where do they arise? Well, they arise by contact. The six sense doors have to make contact with something in the world. If they don't make contact, nothing arises. When you're in a coma, nothing arises. People are talking, you don't hear them. There are machines pumping and so on, you don't hear it. You don't eat or taste anything, smell anything, you don't see anything, etc. So nothing is arising in a state of coma, or very little as far as we know. For the sake of this example, we'll just say nothing is arising, and it's not unlike being dead. The same is true for the mind. Something has to arise in the mind and make conscious contact with consciousness. If it doesn't, then consciousness is empty. Where do they converge? Well, once we make contact through the six sense doors, there is going to be some kind of sensation on the body, Vedana. These feelings are both physical and emotional. So all sensations that arise on the body have the emotional component of being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. We like them, we don't like them, or we don't care. And what is foremost? So of the things we've mentioned up till now, what is most important? Concentration. Being able to have some control over the mind. That's foremost. And what is their master? Well, if we have very developed concentration, we are bound to touch a wisdom. That's the natural result of developing concentration and mindfulness. It's going to result in our touching of wisdom. What is their master? Wisdom, panya. And what is their essence? Well, the purest wisdom results in liberation, vimutti. And where do they merge? They merge in the deathless. Now, I'm going to say, where do they merge? That's everything that we've talked about. Desires, tanha, attention, contact, feelings, concentration, wisdom, liberation. Where do they merge? They disappear, they evaporate, they disintegrate. It's hard to find a vocabulary that is appropriate. The Buddha just really avoided talking about Nibbana because the vocabulary is inadequate, and the mind that listens to the vocabulary is inadequate to understand what is being said. So he often just talked about what it isn't. Okay, where do they merge? They merge in the deathless. So that suggests that there isn't death. There's something that is not subject to death. And where do they end? They end in Nibbana. And we're not going to talk about Nibbana. So let's see. The deathless and Nibbana have the same meaning. In this case, deathless means an arahat still living, and nibbana means an arahat who has died. We've mentioned this before. It's possible to become an arahat on one's deathbed and pass away soon after, or through our practice, even if we're not ill, we could experience the pure liberation, become an arhan, and just pass away. There's a story that Buddha went back home to see his father, who was terminally ill, and he taught his father to meditate and to practice the Dhamma, and his father was successful. According to this story, his father became an arhan and passed away within a week of becoming an arhat. Now, in the commentaries, this has been interpreted to mean that if a lay person becomes an arhan, they will die within 7 days. This is not the teaching of the Buddha. There is no teaching anywhere quoting from the Buddha that suggests an arhan has to die in 7 days. There became now a tradition, even in the forest monk tradition, some people believe, if they become an arhan, a lay person becomes an arhan, they must become a nun or a monk as quickly as possible, otherwise they're going to die. This is a misunderstanding of that teaching. So, the arhan still has karma for as long as they live. That means that they're living because they still have karma. I've mentioned before a fully enlightened arhan, Ajahn Chah. He lived for 10 years in a bed, in diapers, having to be fed. He could not speak, couldn't walk. He had to be attended to by monks 24 hours a day. Yet he was an arhan. His karma was such that this is how the end of life came to him. Okay. The last paragraph says, thus, the appropriateness of Dhamma in all its parts and aspects is to be assessed by whether it leads onward to the path, the fruition, and nibbana. By their fruits they shall be known. That's actually New Testament, so of Christianity. So if we are practicing and we don't see any fruit, any fruition, any significant change, not just in what we think, not just in the way we have understood some teaching, not just the way we talk about Dhamma or think about Dhamma, but how Dhamma has transformed the way we think, and therefore the way we speak, and therefore the way we act. If it hasn't begun to do that in small, simple ways, not some grandiose way, just simple ways. I remember when I used to come home from 10-day meditation retreats, I just felt compelled to clean out drawers and cupboards, get rid of stuff, quote, lighten the load, stop being attached to stuff in drawers and closets and cupboards and shelves that wasn't being used, recognize the emotional attachment to that thing and give it away, sell it, donate it, throw it away, whatever seemed appropriate. That's a small thing. It's a form of decluttering. You don't have to be a meditator to declutter. There are people you can pay to come in your house, help teach you how to declutter if that's what's required. But it's just an example that things begin to change. We anger less quickly and for shorter periods of time. So somebody who usually triggers us in some way, maybe they still trigger us, but not so violently or not so intensely or not for such a long period of time. Maybe no more door slamming, no more cold shouldering and refusing to talk or whatever forms that our anger used to take. So that's how we know we are on the path, because it's actually changing us. It's not ever a question about how others may or may not be changing to suit our desires. Okay. I'm going to read the top of page 61 as a conclusion to these Dhamma talks from this little booklet, Kamatthana, the Foundation of Practice. These are quoted as Buddha's last words. All formations are subject to decay. Bring about completion by being mindful. So all formations are subject to decay. In this Dhamma talk, we've already said anything that arises in consciousness through the six sense doors, and that's the only way something arises in consciousness, then that is a formation. Before it arises, we could argue there were no formations. There might have been just a moment, less than a second, or maybe 1 or 2 seconds between one kind of formation and another. But a formation arose. That's a sankhara. That's what a formation is. It's a sankhara. It's the awareness that something happened. And if it happened, it will stop happening. It's subject to decay. Nothing lasts forever. There's no such thing as forever in any formational universe. Bring about completion by being mindful. So completion is, we've just had it a moment ago, is the end of craving, the end of desire, the end of identifying with formations as happening to me. This is not possible if we have not developed a very intense ability to remain mindful. As a summary, mindfulness is not just knowing that we know. Something arose, we notice that it arose. Previously it arose and we just carried on. Now we have some aspect of consciousness that is watching and saying, oh, look, that just happened. Look, this is happening. Before, it was just happening and we were carrying on mindlessly. Now we have developed this capacity to watch something happen. It's essential that we know and let go. And letting go takes the form of this is happening, or it did happen, but it did not happen to me. This is not me. This does not belong to me. This is not myself. If we're practicing mindfulness without this part, this essential characteristic of right mindfulness, then we're not practicing correctly. We're still identifying as a person. And the goal in the Buddha's teachings is to give up that delusion to bring about the end of suffering. Thank you. Thank you for any of the pages that you listen to. Thank you for sharing. If you shared with others, if you could leave a comment, or if you subscribe, I'm grateful for it. We're beginning to post on podcasts. I have a website and I have a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, all under the name Madrone Mountain Meditation. I would encourage you to visit the Facebook page if you'd like to know a little more about my personal history. I just use the word personal because the pictures and the story in Facebook suggests that I'm a person. That's why we're on Facebook under most circumstances. At any rate, may you be blessed in the practice of your Dhamma. May you be successful. May all beings be happy.